Hey, this is Pamela Schneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and we are working on our way through the online produce shopping, the Path Forward series that we're collaborating with category partners. Today, we're going to look at the frequency of online shopping. And there is one thing that is standing out to me that I thought we could discuss. I have James Michael here from Northwest Cherries and Tom Barnes from Category Partners. And the first thing I wanted to just kind of set us up here was even before the pandemic, consumers reported convenience and time savings as the most important motivators driving online produce purchases. But we've got a kind of a contradiction here, because when we look at the frequency of in-store shopping versus online shopping, people are shopping in-store overwhelmingly. So let's talk about some of the differences and some of the motivators here. Tom, we hear anecdotally that consumers don't like grocery shopping. What is it about the experience that they don't like?
Yeah, that's a great first question. Before I start answering that question, I just want to thank James for jumping on with us and doing this with us. It's been a fun series, and I really enjoy the topic today. And so it'll be great to hear from James. But thank you for taking the time out to do this with us. So grocery shopping and why consumers don't like to do it. Mainly it's time. Everyone is busy. We have a lot to do. Americans like to fill our schedules as much as possible. And it just takes a lot of time to stop, go to the grocery store, especially on those stock up trips, and making sure that we get everything done, walking those stores. And to a lesser degree, because we're walking those stores, is the physical energy to shop in store. And especially those with physical disabilities, it becomes very hard to grocery shop. But even for myself, you know, when I'm shopping, pushing the cart around, dodging in and out of shoppers, it's a chore. And especially if I'm in a Walmart Supercenter or a Super Target, you know, by the time I'm done, I feel like I've just finished a 5K, right? And so it just is those two things, time and, you know, to a lesser degree, you know, the physical energy that it takes to grocery shop.
So what does online shopping offer to counter those issues? It seems like a no-brainer, but I'm sure there's some really key things that that help smooth the experience.
Well, I on that one, at the start of the pandemic, you know, when things were shut down, we was doing pickup, and there weren't any appointments, you know, for a week out, and you know, you had to get on at a certain time period every day, and they put on the next day, immediately be filled up, and you know, we had stores as a family, but you still kind of want to get into the rotation if you're planning a week out for your groceries. That's just not what we're used to in, you know, North America. And they offered delivery within 2 hours. Sure, for $10, why not? We'll give it a try. And it turned out it was fulfilled by a third-party service, but I was able to communicate with the shopper while they're in the store. And I didn't even know that service existed. But once you're able to have that direct experience with somebody there, able to make substitutions on the fly, essentially is like you're shopping the store, but you're not just saving time, like Tom pointed out. I'm able to use that time on something else, whether it's work or chores around the house or spending time with the kids or whatever it is. You know, I'm doubling up. I'm able to be two places at once. And that's all. I mean, you're either saving money or saving time. You know, in some cases, you can do both.
And yet, here's our contradiction. According to our research, consumers overwhelmingly shop in store. So why is this, you know, what is this contradiction? And when we have an easy out with online shopping, it seems like a no-brainer. So why are people shopping in store so much?
So even among online shoppers, nearly all of them still buy in store at least some of the time. And so we do have that barrier, and the barrier that we found in this consumer research that we conducted, the number one barrier to shopping online is that they can't select the items themselves. There's that trust issue or they just don't feel like they have the options available to them online that they would in store. And so you've got that inconvenience of going to the store is offset by being able to select your own food.
I got it. So what can we say about the differences between shopping frequency in store and online? What were the notable shifts amongst the demographics?
Yeah, so talking about frequency, it was very interesting to see the differences between online and in-store. So we asked a series of questions to find out what that frequency is between online and in-store. So when we asked the consumers that were part of the survey if they purchase produce at least once a month, the numbers were very high. Around 95% of consumers said that they purchase produce in store at least once a month, and 85% online, around that for produce specifically. So pretty close to each other. But when we asked if consumers shopped for produce weekly, the numbers weren't that close. In store, still around 85% of consumers that purchase produce in store said that they would purchase around once a week. But online, that number dropped to closer to 50%. So a stark difference between online and in store when looking at that frequency. Why? Because the online is more of a stock up trip, if you want to call it that. And so because they're not as frequent, some of those perishable items need to be purchased in store more frequently.
That makes total sense. That kind of a light bulb moment for me there. I don't know if everyone can see it in my eyes, that people are buying produce online less often because you're doing your list, you're stocking up. There is no place that you shop more on a list than shopping on the grocery store online. I very rarely deviate unless something pops up at me or unless there's some kind of coupon deal. So that makes total sense. Well, knowing this information, what can retailers and suppliers and promotional organizations do with this information to help promote the convenience and time savings online versus in store, and maybe get people to purchase produce online more frequently?
That's a great question. And I know Tom and Category Partners have got a list of suggestions. But one theme that I've noticed in the last few questions we've talked about it in one area that's really key is product discovery. Mm-hmm. Fresh cherries, so I'm from the Northwest. California starts before us, late April, May, and then we start harvest 1st of June and roll through the summer. But still, when you look at the cherry user data going back, a couple of decades, there's a quick influx of shoppers right at the beginning of cherries, fresh cherries, and mm-hmm. those are the super users. People love them, and they know they're looking for them every year. They know when to look for cherries. And then you see right around the 4th of July when we get those big displays or everywhere, the ads, the biggest fruit holiday, the biggest cherry holiday of the year. And then we see all the single purchase, the one bag a year shoppers, the light users. And all of a sudden their sales just skyrocket. And so it's always been about getting those displays out in front of consumers. Cherries, Category Partners showed that cherries are, about 72% impulse. We've had studies done in Korea and other countries around the world, and it always ends up about that, like 3 out of 4 essentially. And when Category Partners looked at the cherry buying, that's still the way it was. It was 72% on the nose of the buyers were in store. They bought a bag. And that's what it shows. You got to have those displays up front, but we did a huge push, and retailers really stepped forward because they realized there was this opportunity to lose cherry dollars because they're not around and they're not a key item. Like you said, if it's not on my list, I'm not looking for it. How do we let customers in 2020 and beyond know that cherries are available? And so there's a big digital push. And what we found in the case of cherries and those items, we saw, even though it's a much smaller percentage, we're buying multiple bags. They were shopping twice as often as the multi-bag shoppers in the stores were. And when they were buying them, they were buying up to 4 times as many bags. And this, so there was this opportunity, and I think that's where it all comes together. Is how do we, as producers and retailers, work together to get all these seasonal items rotated through? How do we reach the consumer and let them know, hey, there's this opportunity, outside of just the couponing, which everyone wants to. How else communicate with shoppers as if they were standing in that last 10 feet or the first 10 feet of a grocery store, and how do we, there's so many variations of that, so many workable plans, but it's so unique depending on the retailer that I don't think the consumer really even knows where to look. And so that's where using this data and some of the plans that Category Partners has to put all of it there in a way that's in front of the customer so they don't miss out on spring asparagus or summer cherries, or fall, apples, or So really, it's a neat time, but like what was the estimate? We've moved ahead 5 years in online retailer, or growth of online retail here in just the last year. So this is, there's a lot of catch up to do.
And right with that, with the options, making sure that they know what is available, and that impulse buy. Cherries is a great example of one of those that online, it just does not hit as hard because it's not top of mind. When people see those cherries in the beautiful in-store displays, it's like, wow, I need my cherries, oh, they're here. And they don't know that when they're just shopping online. If we're not able to reach them through social media or through each retailer's websites, and it's a difficult thing, and I think Northwest Cherries has done a really good job at that this last year. The other thing that I was thinking about with trying to get people to more frequently purchase online would be two things. We talked about trust and we talked about time, and it's all about options. One, it's still very difficult to quickly get an online order. It kind of takes some planning, and then it's normally at least the next day when you're able to get either your curbside pickup or your delivery. And they're working on that. And the more options that retailers allow the consumer to have is going to help immensely. And the other thing is when you, what I think would be very cool is when the consumer is looking online and making their order, if they could actually give instructions to the person that's going to be picking their groceries, picking their produce, saying, hey, I want green bananas because I'm not going to use them for a while, or I want yellow bananas because I'm about to, or the same thing with avocados. I want soft or hard avocados depending on my use. So I don't want the bag of potatoes that has flies all around it or smells funny, but being able to give those directions to the person that's actually going to be looking for their produce and then receiving that result back is going to gain that trust, and it's going to allow people to, more frequently purchase online.
It's going to give them that comfort level, right? Of okay, you did it great a few times, and I've walked you through it a few times. Now I trust you, even if it's not the same person every time. It's kind of a man behind the curtain thing. Depending on who does
the more retailer or service can emphasize or facilitate a real-time conversation, with the shopper, with the picker, and I think that's where some of these services are going with the growth of AI. Hopefully there'll be some cost effectiveness there. But as a shopper, when I'm able to communicate with somebody in the store, that's a game changer. I don't feel like I've already sunk, here's my list, and it's just what will I actually get? What am I going to have to deal with when I get to the store? For the pickup, oh, you're out of this, okay, swap this. It's simply done, and both the shopper and the buyer move on.
There's so many innovations that I'm sure are just on the cusp of happening. The real time. Wouldn't it be nice to know when your retailer is going to start picking your groceries so you can be ready to talk to them back and forth? So not only your time slot to pick up, but also here's your shopping time slot. So if we need to ask you a question, we'll ask you a question between 1 and 2 in the afternoon when you pick up at 4. So many cool things that are happening in online grocery. And we will wait till the next segment to talk about more. Thanks again, James. Thanks again, Tom. And that's it for now.